When our best fur friends leave our world, many of us are left wanting one last scritch, one last hug, one last walk together. One Last Network is a space for pet guardians to honor their pets in their senior years and to cope with the days leading up to and after their passing. Here's your host, Angela Schneider, founder of One Last Network and Big White Dog Photography in Spokane, Washington.
Welcome back. Our episode today, The Art of Caring Until the End, features Darlene Woodward of Panthatown Photography in Massachusetts, interviewing her friend Julie Gass of MSPCA-Angell in Boston. Julie is a veterinary social worker who started her career in human medicine, working with serious illness and grief. She provided end-of-life and bereavement support to patients and their families at Mount Auburn Hospital, but then turned to end-of-life care for pets and their families. She's combined her love of animals and her passion for helping people to heal from loss and trauma. With Darlene, Julie sheds light on the crucial yet often overlooked field of pet hospice care. With deep empathy and compassion, Julie helps pet owners navigate the painful process of saying goodbye to their beloved animal companions. And through her insights and experiences, she illuminates the profound bond between humans and their pets and the importance of providing support during the final stages of a pet's life. Julie breaks down the emotional challenges faced by pet owners as they prepare to say goodbye, and emphasizes the importance of acknowledging and validating the grief experienced by these individuals, all while guiding these humans to make one of the hardest decisions we have to make as pet parents. Have a listen.
This past March on Giving Tuesday, I watched a presentation on pet love, loss, and grief given by Julie Gass. The MSPCA, which stands for the Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, hosted a series of webinars to raise awareness and raise funds to help the animals. The presentation was a tearjerker, as so many things dealing with pet loss seem to be. But I knew after the presentation that Julie would be a great person to interview for One Last Network. And I'm thrilled to introduce you to Julie Gass, veterinary social worker, who is here with us today. Welcome, Julie. And how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well, Darlene. You can't complain. It's beautiful spring weather, which we never get.
It's so true. And we never know when the rain is coming. This New England spring has been a little bit crazy, but we do have sunshine today and great 60 degrees. So we're good.
Yeah, exactly. It's not 90, which sometimes it is suddenly. So
so true. So true. We'll take these nice days when we can get it.
Yes.
Awesome. So before we kind of dive into what you do, how you got into it, and just start by telling us, our listeners, a little bit about who you are. What about you?
I get to talk about myself?
You do. You do. Not all the deep stuff yet.
Okay. We'll wait to unpack all that. Okay. Wow. I have to really search my memory of thinking of what do I do? Well, I guess I'm a transplant from the Washington, D.C. area. So I moved up here about 7-ish years ago and just making my life in Boston to be closer to family. And I guess just things I enjoy up here, like I do a lot of birding. I wouldn't say I'm a professional birder by any means, but I enjoy that as a nice pastime. And of course, I'm a big reader. I used to be a librarian before this. So I've always just been into books and, fiction, nonfiction, that kind of thing. And then I also just like to just be outside walking my dog, enjoying nature. I play softball in a softball league. It's a bunch of us kind of middle-aged ladies, like reliving the glory days.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. And such a great outlet for anything we do dealing with pets. And, if you're dealing with pet loss and grief, we need all of those outlets, those hobbies, and those activities to kind of give us an outlet.
Absolutely. Yes. I think one of the hardest things for people is that their outlets were whatever they were doing with their pets. And that's one part of the huge adjustment to make when they're at end of life, is kind of grieving over the pet that you had and the pet that you now have, adjusting to whatever barriers they have, whatever illness, like symptoms and side effects. So it is a really, really a hard time to get out there and do things. But if you can, absolutely, because
true.
you need your identity. You need to maintain a piece of your identity as the person out in the world, beyond being a caregiver. And that's really hard to do.
That's so true. Especially, I found one of the hardest things after pet loss was walking, after spending, 3 times a day walking my dog, enjoying the fresh air. When she was gone, I didn't want to walk anymore, because I thought, who walks without a dog? You have to have a dog to walk. Why would you just go walk?
Why would you want to be out here?
Right.
And like, what do you do with your hands?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And a lot of people too, walks with their dogs meant engaging with others. And it's harder to engage with people when you're by yourself. It's a little weirder walking up to people and saying, hi.
Exactly. Our dogs are the magnets of interaction with others. They bring the extrovert out in us.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Whether you want to or not.
Exactly. You don't have a choice.
Yes.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, so let's hear about veterinary social work.
Sure.
And how you got into that.
It was kind of by accident, actually. I was doing hospice social work, and I was just starting to get burnt out. I needed a change. And so I was just looking through like job ads and stuff. And at that point I was considering either doing palliative care in hospitals or doing another hospice job. And I saw this, this job ad for MSPCA-Angell hiring a veterinary social worker. And I was like, what? I just couldn't believe my eyes.
This is a sign.
I know, exactly. So, but it was one of those things, and I don't know if other people have had this, where something clicks and everything just goes right. Like I saw that ad. I was like, I thought, that this is for me. This culminates everything that I love. And then, and the interview went well, and it all just flowed so easily and natural. And I've job hunted in this area, and it's really hard, sending out dozens of resumes, but the path just took me right to here, and it all has felt right since. So, I feel lucky to have a job like this, actually.
That's awesome. That's amazing. How many years have you been with the MSPCA now?
So now it's 3 years. Actually, my anniversary was just on May 11th.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice. They're wonderful. The MSPCA does amazing things in the community and to help the animals. So
yeah, they do. And it's nice to work for an organization that like mirrors that, like my own values.
Yeah. That's awesome. So a little bit about what exactly you do and with clients and how you work with them.
Yeah. So it's interesting because so my office is right there in the lobby, and we're there for anybody to come by and say hi. And like one of the top questions I get is, what do you do?
Right.
And then inevitably someone's always like, oh, do you do therapy with animals?
Right. What exactly? And how are you different in the veterinary field? Or yeah.
Okay. So basically, the job has 2 components to it. There's supporting the humans. So the humans who are doing the medical care, so staff who are kind of at risk for compassion fatigue just because of how difficult the work is. And then the other side of it are the humans who are caregiving or like grieving over the loss of their pets. And I think that's more focused on what we're talking about today. And that usually comes up in 3 different ways. One would either be through a crisis situation in our hospital, like say someone's dog just got hit by a car, or they heard a really difficult diagnosis and don't know how to manage those feelings. And so we put so much love and emotion into our animals that when something happens to them, we just we become a mess, because they carry our hearts. So, a being that has all of our love in them and who trusts us is suddenly now in danger or hurt. And sometimes it's really hard not to just let it all out and lose track of yourself for a little while. So what I do is I help people, kind of calm down. I get them their basic needs met, like giving them water and things like that. And then I start asking them to show me photos of their pet, when they're able to. And that always starts bringing a smile to someone's face, or at least gets them more focused and calmer. And through that, like, we basically try to get people prepared to make hard decisions. Our lobby is full of people who are either there for a routine visit or who are on the edge of their seats, wondering what in the world's going to happen to their baby. And you can see, like, the tension is there. When I walk out to go to the bathroom or something, people kind of look up and they're like, "Oh, are you here for me?" They're just ready to talk. Sorry, I'm rambling.
No, you're not at all. No, I think this is wonderful. And yeah, the way you can help people. We love to talk about our pets. And like you said, that's a way to sidetrack people, to make them smile.
Mm-hmm. And be in the present moment, right? Because that's one of the things that animals do for us, is they help us not think about the past or the future. They help us just kind of be calm and focused on them. And what we're getting in return is just like adoring eyes and soft fur and snuggles. And it really kind of brings us out of the chaos of our lives, and they help us just feel good inside,
True.
So in the lobby, when that's at risk or that's threatened, we're there to help people just kind of collect themselves, and then also help make treatment decisions or end of life decisions. And and that is the kind of what's really hard. And I think you see that a lot in grief and loss and bereavement, is that that information that your dog or your cat is going to die soon, or that their prognosis is bad, it's a traumatic experience. And so it's really hard to think after that, because at that point, your mind is going into protection mode, and everything gets kind of like swimmy and hazy, or maybe you get numb, or you can't focus or concentrate. So a lot of times people, like when I'm doing bereavement work, barely remember what was said to them, or they, everything seems a little blurry. And then that ends up leading into, I must have done something wrong, or did I make the right decision? Because sometimes it happens so fast that they can't really be present or think about it. Yeah.
Right. And the guilt and everything, and just
how
do you make those types of decisions?
Right. So that's when I have a chance to work with someone, that's a goal, is to help them make a decision that they're not going to look back on and say, I wish I'd done something different. Mm-hmm. And so that's, getting people to try to get themselves calm, and then think through objectively what's best for them and their pet. And maybe even project down the line a little bit of what they would have wished they had done, looking back, if we can get there. Mm-hmm. And so then we kind of just look at the information of what the doctor presented to them, what their own values are, and then what their animal might want. That's hard to understand because they can't talk to us, but you can always take a look at what their behaviors are and the things that they like, and kind of draw conclusions from that. So where that all intersects is where the decision is, I'd say.
True. That's so true. So you help people make the decision when it comes to hospice care. And I know recently I spoke with Dr. Jennifer Cushing, who does home euthanasia, and she is certified in palliative care. And we touched a little bit about the palliative care, which at that time, I didn't realize there was too much of a difference, but they are actually different things, palliative care and hospice care. And I did some research on my own, and was amazed by, just learning so much about it. Can you talk a little bit to us about hospice care and how you talk to clients about that, and the little process that goes into that?
Of course. Yeah. And actually I'm glad, because I also hope, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I like doing this work, is that there is a little bit of a bridge between human medicine and animal medicine. And I think education for both ends are needed. And I think this is a really nice way for people to hear about hospice for animals and palliative care, but then also know that this applies to humans as well.
Right.
Palliative care is treating pain. So, and that can be in any situation. So you could be going in for, whether if it's like a transplant or like a surgery, you're going to be palliated, because later when you leave that place, you're going to maybe be rehabilitating. You're going to be maybe doing physical therapy, and then you're probably going to be doing things like, say, acupuncture or taking certain meds to take away the pain. So that's the palliative part. And then depending on how you look at palliative, you can also spread it out beyond medical, right? So when I was interning at the National Institutes of Health, our rec therapy group, they also were part of it. So it's like not just medicine, it's also what brings you joy to your life. So when you think about pets, it's similar. You know, what do they need to have a fulfilling life, and what do they need to take away the pain?
Okay.
Hospice is you have a terminal diagnosis, and you are not going to be treated anymore. And so in this country, you know, we have a very treatment focused mindset. And so it's really hard. I kind of think of it as, you know, when you're doing care for a pet, you're kind of walking and you're only looking at the few steps in front of you, because you're just thinking about the details of the medicine regimen, the doctor's visits, looking for signs and symptoms. And so, you know, you're kind of plodding along, and then suddenly you're at the crossroads of, is it time to stop treatment, or is it time to keep going and just try everything to the end, like just fight to the bitter end? And so I think there's a transition that happens in hospice from hope and treatment to acceptance, and you're beginning like loss and preparing for the end. And so it's a tough transition, and tougher for some people than others. So hospice is right there at that part where you're at end of life. You know that you have limited time, and you're not treating anymore, but you are palliating because the animal is still in pain. So I hope that kind of clears it up.
Yeah, definitely. And you work with clients right through that whole process, helping them make those decisions when it's time.
Yes. Yeah, it is. I know it's really hard, because sometimes you get attached and like you build relationships. And, we had this wonderful couple we were working with, and I think I mentioned her in the talk. She, during the course of her animal's care, she developed Alzheimer's disease. And so the treatment that, she was giving to her dog, who was very, very special to her, and also helping her, with her illness and providing her companionship and unconditional love. So her dog got an extra like 2 years through the oncology department here, and through that time she got sicker, and then her dog's treatment stopped working. So we were there with them through the whole thing, and then when it came time, I met with her and the doctors, and we talked about whether or not they wanted to stop treatment. And she had decided, yes, that she was just going to palliate her dog. And so then at that point, it was more about just providing like support for, like, say, anticipatory grief, right? Okay. And that comes along with hospice care. And that is knowing that your pet is going to pass away and living the grief feelings, but not actually like having that resolution yet, I guess you could say. Like you're kind of waiting on pins and needles, and I think you've been there. I've been there.
We've been there. It's it's the worst. It's horrible.
It's absolutely horrible. And that's where you find yourself doing the craziest things, because I was like following my cat around with bowls of water and food, and making sure that she had whatever she needed, and following her around to make sure she didn't stumble or fall. And And that's where you do anything and everything possible to make sure that they're doing okay and that they're not in pain.
Right.
So, sorry, to go back to that the end of that story is that and then, she came to us when it was the end, and her dog had been palliated through not having treatment anymore. She decided that, so you could say that was hospice care.
Yeah.
And then when it came time where her dog was suffering more than not having, suffering more than having good days, we all sat with her and we euthanized her dog with her. So there was a group of us in there with her. And I think that that's kind of what it's all about, is helping people through the hardest parts of it.
Yes.
And also, it's such an isolating thing. So maybe helping people know that they're not alone in it either.
Right. Right. That the feelings are normal. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to scream, cry, get it all out. And
yes. And more importantly, it's okay to stop.
Yes.
It's okay to decide. And I think sometimes people are worried that the doctor is going to be mad at them, or they feel like they're not doing enough. And
right.
So I consider it part of my job to point out all the things that they've done that are enough.
Right.
And that illness is something that you can only control up to a certain point, but then it's out of your hands. And I think that's a lot of time where the guilt comes from, is feeling like you should have done more, but not recognizing that there really wasn't anything else you could do.
Right. And everything we do for our pets is obviously out of love for them. And the fact that we can help them through this decision, it's a gift for them. It's a gift we can give them to not have to suffer, not have to be in any kind of pain.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's something where you feel that you don't care enough. But actually, I think it's quite the opposite of that.
So true.
Because you're making a decision that is just beyond what you want, and you're doing it for their well-being. And so you're right, it is a gift.
It's a gift. So true. Afterwards, do you still keep in touch with clients? Is there any kind of post care? Is it through the whole process and afterwards that you work with them too?
Of course. Yeah. It's like a whole continuity of care.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah. And so what happens is then we start doing bereavement if they want to.
Okay.
And sometimes, honestly, people will work out anticipatory grief so much that when it comes time when their animal has passed, they've actually done a lot of the labor in getting kind of adjusted to it. And so they may not need as much sometimes. So basically what we do is our service has bereavement support for clients of Angel. And if you aren't, then we help you get connected to someone in the community. Okay. And what we do is go over those really hard things of, guilt is inevitable. It just is. And so kind of rationalizing through that. And then also looking at, we have a bereavement support group, and then also a Facebook page too, to get people. Yeah, well, that's the whole thing, is like people need to talk to other people about what's happening, because they're holding in their feelings and not feeling like they have a right to. It's like a disenfranchised grief, like it's not as fully recognized. So people tend to hold in their feelings because they're either embarrassed that no one's going to understand, or people don't understand. They say, get another dog. What are you crying about? And
they say the wrong things.
I always think that someone's always going to say the wrong thing when your personal life is out there for others to see, like whether you're pregnant on the train or someone's going to say something that's completely, I guess, well-intended, but it doesn't hit the mark.
So true. So true.
But yeah, so we do that. And then basically, we help people just kind of get through the hardest parts. And when it seems that they are okay enough to kind of handle it on their own, then we kind of part ways. Sometimes people, what I consider like a gift of bereavement is that it uncovers other things that you're struggling with. And so sometimes people make revelations of, they realize that they really can't connect with people the way that they thought, or they are lonelier than they realized, or maybe they spent the past couple of years caregiving for an animal that really needed them, and then they need to kind of make a transformation into the person they want to be. And those are the gifts of grief and loss, is having that opportunity to do that. And so then we connect them to like therapists in the community where they can continue on their journey.
Oh, wonderful.
Really.
That's great service. And what does the future of veterinary social work look like? Is it a growing field, I'm guessing? And
it is, yeah. When I first started 3 years ago, there was only, I think, 2 others that I knew of in like New England. Yeah. And so now I know there's a few people in Connecticut. There's at least 4 of us here in Massachusetts, maybe more.
Okay.
I think we have someone in Maine that has started. So it is growing. And we get a lot of people asking how to get started in it and how to get a job doing that. And, so I think that a perfect start is making sure that social work tends to be the field, that the mental health field that you need. But also like looking at things like trauma, and grief and loss. Those all are pretty consistent themes. So if you have any skill in that or those areas or experience, then you're already kind of set up for working with people who are going through this. Yeah.
I think what you do is absolutely wonderful. And
I'm
so glad that I found you and listened in that day to your webinar with the MSPCA. That I have to talk to her. She is just amazing, so passionate in what you do.
Thank you. It feels good that you like listened and you liked it. All I saw was like a screen and no humans. And
right, that's hard.
Right. And then there was something like at one point I saw 77 people had joined, and I was like, oh my goodness. My heart is fluttering right now. So anyway, thank you. It feels really good that people are interested. And but of course they would be, right? Because who doesn't have a dog or a cat that they love?
And all of these topics we need to be more aware of, and it's all learning and how we can get through this. And yes, we are all going to be okay. And yes, we will remember our pets every day, every moment.
Exactly. You're right. And I even want to take it to another step, which is looking at what you went through with your pet and knowing you could get through one of the worst times of your life and still keep going. Yeah. And I think that's what would be like a traumatic resilience of basically taking that pain and all the messiness of end of life, and forming that into like an understanding of yourself, and forming it into a strength that now you can get through the hardest thing ever, and you can keep going, and whatever comes your way in the future, you can do it.
There's that bond that you share together, and that love that you have for them. They truly are our world. They mean everything to us.
They do. Which is why I'll walk my puppy for an hour while he chases moths and eats them. It's
right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we do everything for them.
Yeah. And then that's why people like us exist, is because we just want to make sure that people don't lose sight of that when they're grieving, and that they can celebrate their animal's life and celebrate the life they had with them, instead of focusing on what they think they might have done wrong in those last few hours or days of their pet's life.
Right. Because it is a celebration, and we want to stay positive and remember those happy moments and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Julie, thank you so much. This was wonderful chatting with you. Do you have anything else that you want to share with our listeners? I think this was, I loved learning more about what you do and everything. This was fantastic.
Yeah. It's, I think that if you are finding that you're having a hard time, do not feel shy about asking for help. I've worked with people who have had a hard time getting through their bereavement period because they close down from shame. And I think, making a euthanasia decision is so intense that sometimes people feel like they don't deserve to heal or they don't deserve to move forward, because they're not talking to people and hearing that they actually did something good and that they did something not positive. What's the word I'm looking for? They did something that was a part of the contract they had with their pet.
Right.
So you know what? I would say just don't suffer in silence. Look up a counselor who specializes in pet loss. Go to a pet loss support group and start talking to people, because you'll start to find that you're not alone in it, and that probably everything you went through, someone else has gone through something similar.
True.
So just don't bottle it up. Talk to somebody.
Which, thank you for bringing that up, because part of One Last Network, one of our main missions is to connect people with those resources that will help them get through all of this, whether it's the anticipatory grief, the post-grief, the whole process. And those resources are out there and people don't know about them yet. And we want to make all the pet people aware that, yes, there is help to get them through every phase of it.
Yes, exactly. They don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate it. It's such a joy.
I appreciate it too. And thanks for inviting me on and for doing this work. It's beautiful work. So I appreciate everything you guys do.
Thank you. Thank you. And you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. You as well.
Julie. Bye-bye.
Bye.
How many of us suffer in silence, enduring our grief alone? And there are legions of us doing it. We have this wild, disparate, and dispersed community that feels impossible to bring together under one big pet loss grief umbrella. So we learn to move forward on our own, building what Julie called traumatic resilience. It's the ability to adapt, cope, and recover from a traumatic event or loss, including, or especially, the moment when we must say goodbye to our best fur friend. That decision none of us ever wants to make, but make it we must. And in the days after that decision, our daily routines are disrupted. We are left feeling empty and alone, and we face the complex range of emotions that come with grief. Anger, guilt, sadness, fear, and so many more. To move forward, to build this resilience, we must acknowledge that what we're feeling is real and valid. We must give ourselves permission to grieve, to cry, to miss our loyal companions. And we must understand that what we are feeling is a natural response to our loss. We must take care of ourselves. Eat well, get some sleep, go for that walk. Even if you don't know what to do with your hands that aren't holding a leash. I remember trying to walk without Shep by my side, just so that I could say I got up and got moving. It was awful. But the sunlight, the fresh air, I needed them. And ultimately, those little walks kept me connected to my boy. And 9 years later, even with a leash in my hand for Bella, they still do. Which also helps me bring meaning to my life and Shep's. Those hikes that I learned to love with him and continue with Bella, they fill my soul and honor his memory every step we take. And finally, we must seek support. We should not suffer in silence or face this grief alone. This wild, disparate, and dispersed community is connected in many ways, whether it be through podcasts like One Last Network, a veterinary social worker like Julie Gass at MSPCA-Angell, support groups on Facebook or in person, or professional counselors like our good friend Beth Bigler at honoringouranimals.com. The resources are out there. And just as Darlene said, that's what we're trying to do. connect you to the resources you may need as your pets age and when the end draws near. We can find comfort, validation, and a safe place to express our emotions. If you need to tell me a story about your pet, I'm at the other end of an email. Drop me a note at angela@onelastnetwork.com. As much as I love telling stories, I love hearing them too. Next week, I host Bryn Souza, a friend I met through the Dog Writers Association of America. She endured great pain and loss through 2022 and the beginning of this year, including the deaths of her 2 dogs, Yoda and Bean. She occasionally sees signs from them, and she allows those signs to bring her comfort. Bryn shares her journey and why she chooses to be an eternal optimist. Until then. I'm Angela Schneider, owner of Big White Dog Photography in Spokane, Washington, and your host at One Last Network, signing off to go get some Bella snuggles. Listen to One Last Network on whichever podcast platform you prefer. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. Don't forget to hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you have a friend who might be interested in our content, make sure you share us with them. Thanks for listening.